Just a few days ago, Shift Up announced that Stellar Blade was going to be completely uncensored worldwide, and gamers were praising not only Shift Up, but also Sony for allowing this game to exist in all of its glory and not stifling the developers' creative decisions. But now we know that that is not actually the case, because there is a spot of graffiti in the game that says hard R, and Sony has forced Shift Up to censor it. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, over the years, I have had to talk a lot about Sony forcing developers to censor their games, or their games get banned from the platform. And of course, as a developer, you don't want your game to be banned on one of the largest gaming platforms that there is. But the problem with this is that Shift Up signed an exclusivity deal with Sony. This is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. You can only get it on their platform. And now, if you want to play Stellar Blade, unfortunately, you're going to have to support this censorship, minor or not, because in the original game, as you can see, or I should say, the copy that went out to journalists to review had this graffiti that says hard, and then there's this little sign that says R. So there are journalists who decided to complain about this, saying this is offensive, this shouldn't be in the game. And what was the response from Sony? We're so sorry, this happened, we are going to patch it out. And that is exactly what has happened, because as you can see with the new version, it says crime in graffiti, and the R shop sign is still there. But now they have completely broken people's trust, and this is, in my opinion, not particularly the fault of Shift Up. This is a major issue that I put the blame on Sony for, right? Because the journalists were the ones who were mad at this, who were offended by this and upset by this. And then, because they perceived it as racist, they complained to Sony, and Sony forced Shift Up to alter it. It doesn't mean that Shift Up meant it to be racist or anything like that, and I do not think that that was the case, but these journalists and also Sony are the ones giving it this meaning, and ultimately now Shift Up has been forced to change it, and it's so sad because they did sign an exclusivity deal with Sony, and this is the reason why you don't sign things like this, because you destroy any type of bargaining leverage you'd have, and you completely take off the table being able to offer it not changed on other platforms. Now, because of the deal, they don't have the ability to offer it uncensored on something like Xbox or Steam, and let this be a warning to developers. Exclusivity is bad. There were some people who were already upset. It was a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and they could not experience it on consoles they may own or platforms they may own. But this is a major problem. This is why, over the years, I have not trusted Sony. This is why you should not trust Sony, because they do force developers to censor their content. And sure, you can say that this is small censorship compared to how much of this game has been left alone, but any amount of censorship is too much censorship, especially when you're forcing a meaning on something. And this was not done because Shift Up genuinely felt bad, or they found an employee who put this in the game and wanted there to be some hidden meaning behind it. None of that happened. Sony has forced censorship on Stellar Blade for perceived racist graffiti. And of course, people are not happy about this. People are very upset about this because of a few angry journalists ruining a lot of fun. I personally would not have looked at this and instantly thought of it being some like offensive racist sign that was in the game, and I think most normal people wouldn't either. And let's be honest, I'm sure that there are a heck of a lot of people who are now going to talk about this and talk about how funny they actually found the initial graffiti, even if it was unintentional. Not everyone sees things as racist or sexist or offensive like these gaming journos do. It is just so sad that now so many people will have to sit and really think about if they want to support this game because a company like Sony decided to listen to a few individuals who happen to write articles and then talk about how they perceive this to be offensive and racist when most normal people would just find it to be funny or wouldn't even think twice about a hidden meaning. And we now know one of the main people who pointed it out was actually a journo at Polygon, go figure, but he also claimed that the hard R must have been intentional, and his other famous opinions include Bayonetta is sexist and awful, and Witcher 3 is sexist and awful, two absolutely amazing games, and of course series, so it's very clear that this is someone who doesn't care about video games or trying to shed light on amazing titles, and it's all about the narratives for them. It is all about what they find as offensive and then deeming it as that and screaming it to the world in articles to get some kind of attention. And this is why companies like Sony and developers should not be listening to the games media, because they do not represent the majority of gamers' opinions, and they shouldn't be writing articles for themselves. They should be writing articles for us and for consumers and to help educate consumers, and we can clearly see that that's just not the case. It's so sad to see this happen because so many people have been extremely excited about Stellar Blade, and we also, again, were just recently praising ShiftUp for having this game uncensored in all regions, but now that this Day 1 patch exists, it definitely puts a damper on the experience for a lot of people, and I am sure that they are going to lose out on some sales. I will still be streaming it. I'm still very excited for it. I still do want to play the game, but it sucks to have to deal with either not playing a game that otherwise looks amazing or, dealing with censorship. This should not be a debate for people to go through. I shouldn't have to sit here and decide, well, do I really want to support Sony or do I not support an otherwise amazing game? It's just so sad to see this happen, especially only a few days from launch, and I'm sure a lot of people will not even be aware of this situation when the game, of course, finally releases, because not everybody is glued to social media all the time. But this is just a very disappointing situation that Sony has forced ShiftUp to censor this game only days before launch because journalists perceived this as racist. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.